All right, I'll turn it over to the group. Before we get to the media, continuity seems to be in place here to a degree. In Milwaukee, there hasn't been a great deal of continuity in coaching staffs. The roster seems to have a little continuity. I would like you, if you would, to speak to what you think that will bring in the immediate future and how you're viewing all of that. That's something a little bit new to us here, if we're honest about it.
Sure. I think for us, one of the things we decided is we've got a phenomenal core, and we all know we do. And I think part of it, as we looked at this offseason, was we wanted to sort of add a little bit on the edges, but we've got a great core, and as long as that core keeps on developing, I think we're going to get to a championship. So I think for us was to continue with that core, and hopefully it gets us to where we want to be. So we're pretty excited about it.
Anyone else on the subject?
Well, we have, I think it's 13 players back from last year, so there's only 15 guys in the roster. So, we talked about a lot, the continuity card is what we're playing really right now. And exactly as Mark said, we've got a very talented young core. We've got a great coaching staff, great training staff. That's, very few changes. We had lots of opportunities this summer to have made big changes, right? Because when you have as many talented young players as we do, everybody calls you with wonderful ideas about who you should trade them for somebody else. And at the end of the day, we listened to a lot of different things. We're very, very happy with, kind of where we ended up.
All right, with that, Jamie, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I was just talking with Mirza in the back, and he was just saying how this continuity thing really makes a difference. It takes a long time to get used to a system, and he really thinks we're going to be hugely at big advantage this year because of that continuity. And what we lack a little bit with, I would say, experience, we make up with youth, and I think the East is going to be a little bit of a challenge of youth versus experience, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, we'll use that question and the answers as a launching point to the media. Once again, if you would identify yourself and your outlet the first time around. Thank you.
Morning, Gennaro Armas with Associated Press. Obviously, you've still got a relatively young team, but as you mentioned, the core has been together for a few years now. You made the playoffs again last year. Where is the trajectory of this team compared to when you bought it a few years ago, and have your expectations changed, and how much have they changed?
We expect to win a championship, right? That's what we said the first day that we showed up in front of you guys, and that hasn't changed at all. And I think that everything that we do is focused on that. And I think it's not a matter of, setting a goal for another few games to win or a playoff series. Those are all milestones of what is really the ultimate journey, which is we want to have a championship team. And I feel like, we have a very good chance of continuing to build towards that.
Yeah, I agree with Wes. I think if you think about it, when we bought the team, so this is our fourth season. We've made the playoffs 2 out of the 3. And what's become clear is we now have sort of a top 10 player. And that, the goal or the dream of winning a championship, I think today is far more real than it was sort of, when we first bought the team. That was our hope. That's still our hope. But today you can see that there's a great foundation there. And, how long is it going to take for us to get there? And we think we're going to get there if everybody keeps on developing. I don't think anybody thought 4 years ago Giannis was going to be a top 10 player. You were hoping he was going to be a really good player.
Top 5.
Top 5. So, so we're progressing pretty well. And if we can have a season where no one is hurt, that's really what we'd love to see, is that just have a season where no one is hurt and see how everybody's able to play together, because we have the talent. Last year Chris was out for quite a bit of time. Then when Chris came back that same day, Jabari got hurt. So if we can have everybody there for a whole year, I think we've got a huge amount of potential.
Reed Forgrave here with CBSSports.com. I'm curious how philosophically you guys balance the temptation to go for it now versus the need for patience. It seems like the temptation can sink lots of teams. And I'm curious, you guys, how you do balance that.
I think it's a great question, because I think that's
It's a really good question.
That's what we talk about all the time. It's okay, what do we want to do? What do you want to do? And it's hard. I think this year when we decided, look, let's stay with the continuity and with our core, part of that is our belief that we've got a phenomenal team if everybody isn't hurt. And let's see what happens there. But I think it's hard. I mean, because you do want to make, you sort of said you want to make changes. And I think for us, we have a great young core, but more important than that, we have a great young group of individuals. I mean, people that, as individuals, huge amount of respect, that we like a great deal. And we want them and us to be part of a championship team.
Eric Name, ESPN Milwaukee. As you guys move forward here and move from thinking about the future to thinking about an actual team, what do you try to use as criteria to view your coach, your front office, and how you're building an organization?
Well, it's no one thing, right? I've been involved in a lot of organizations away from the Milwaukee Bucks, and what you typically see is that parts of the organization don't all move together in lockstep. So one part develops a little faster than another part needs to catch up, et cetera. So when we look at this, it is everything from the facilities that we're in to our coaching staff, our training staff, of course, the players, everything else that kind of goes into the business and development side. We feel very good about the development of the franchise generally. I think as Mark was saying, if you look back, 3.5 years ago, we sat up here, we bought the team. Immodestly, I think that things are a lot different today than they were then in just about every regard. And we haven't won a championship yet. We've had some success on the court. We really do feel like that we're at a tipping point of the organization. If everybody stays healthy, that we can really make a material step forward in our competitiveness, both as a team, as an organization. So, it's a constant assessment of how things are going, but we feel really good about where things are.
If you think, one of the things we said 3 or 4 years ago was, we're going to build a new arena, we're going to build a new facility, and we're going to try to win a championship. I don't think anybody thought we were going to be able to build an arena as quickly as we did. He did. Wes, from day one, absolutely believed it. But we got it done, I think, in probably the shortest amount of time anybody would have thought was possible. We've been able to build sort of the training facility, and we're all here. The arena will be there next year. So I think, you could see we're progressing, and I think hopefully within the next 3 years, we're able to accomplish, 3 to 5 years, we're able to accomplish those goals.
And I think what's important to note is when Mark, Wes and I, talk about, the player stuff, I think in our minds, it's all about a long-term vision, but it's a vision that, as Wes talks about, that has a championship, as its goal. And I think as a team, we're really committed to do whatever we can do to help achieve that goal.
I just want to add one thing. I think Wes said, we were trying to build a culture here of winning, of excellence in everything we do. This building is like a second home for the players, but everything we're doing is trying to build a culture of winning and excellence. And if we build an excellent culture that transforms through all the organization, it's going to show up on the court too. And the new arena, just another evolution of that. And I think, and also give back to Milwaukee while we're doing it. So that was the commitment. And I think that we're in the process of that. It's not a 1 year even effort, but we're heading in the right direction, and continuing on that track, I think, is going to be our objective.
Matt Velasquez, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. What are some of your takeaways from this off-season, and during which you went through the process of hiring a new GM, you do the draft, free agency, and all the while the team is looked at as an up-and-coming team with high expectations going forward? I mean, Wes mentioned you have teams calling all the time about your young core and your young guys. So what's it like kind of being on that kind of different side of things where you're getting calls and people want to, look at your players and stuff like that?
Well, it's better to be on this side than the other side, right? So we have a lot of assets, and while we want to be very patient about building, there is a here and now element to it, right? For sure. And so that is the question that Mark was answering in terms of trying to balance it, because while we do have a young team, second youngest team in the league, like I told Jed, if we hadn't brought him back, we'd probably be the youngest. So it's all his fault. But the second youngest team in the league. But we know that there's a window that you've got to compete. Giannis just starts his new contract. We've got Chris for a couple of years. Key parts of the team are in place, but it's not going to be forever. So you can't have the 10-year plan. It's it's a much shorter thing. And I think it's, so far, so good. Like I said, we had a lot of opportunities to, people like had all kinds of great ideas they thought for our team, and we really decided to play the continuity card, stick with what we think is really working, that we thought the best thing we could do is get 1 year older. We all felt the season ended a little bit too early last year, and have great, aspirations to be playing basketball in May and June in our future. And we thought that ultimately the best answer to get from here to there was to stick with what we've got. And of course, it's a business, and things change, and there could always be different opportunities. But when we balanced all that out, that's the decision that we made. It was an active decision, not a passive decision.
This is Homer from ESPN. It's nice to have all four of you up here. I don't mean to be rude, but there have been massive articles written over the last year or two about who's in charge. This was done, Eden's in charge. This was done, Laz's in charge. Now Eden's in charge. Amy, you don't seem to rank as high on all these articles. And so my question is, who's the boss?
My wife.
All right. Who makes the final call, and has it transferred in the time that you've been owners as to who that person is?
We have we as a group, collaborate. And like with all good partnerships, you're not going to agree on everything. And we basically, run the organization, and we say on the most material things, who the GM is, who the coach is, who the president is, those things we're going to agree on. And we're going to continue to work on it until we agree. And it has worked exceptionally well. I've been in lots of partnerships in different businesses, and this is one of the more successful ones I've got. And it's not the easiest because people do write articles and talk about it on talk radio. And there's a lot of it that happens publicly that wouldn't happen in other organizations that you're in. But it's a collaboration, and that's the way that we really run it. Within the organization, we hire Peter Fagan to run it. We hire John Horst to run the operations. We hire Jason Kidd, and we hold those guys accountable, right? And so it's not about micromanaging them, but the big decisions as far as ownership are made in collaboration with each other.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I think we all really kind of view ourselves, and I think Wes has used this word in the past, is we view, we're stewards of this team, okay? We don't view ourselves as owners. We basically assume from Senator Cole the stewardship, and we all want the same thing. We all have the same goals, and that's what really makes it work.
I have to ask you a political-related question here. You probably assumed you'd get it. But given the comments made over the weekend by President Trump about the anthem and then the Warriors, how much are those issues that you feel you need to address with your team and then as an organization as a whole?
Yeah. It's, I think, I personally view it as a great opportunity. There's a great Nelson Mandela quote that says something to the effect of, sport has the power to change the world. And I think it's a very binding, a very solidifying, crosses, in different sports, different genders, different nationalities. And I think that sport is itself a very, very transformative element that can be very helpful in addressing some of these issues that arise. And I think, specifically with respect to what, was said and the reaction to him and whatnot, I think that we're not a political organization, right? And so our goal is to basically, work together with our team and with the organization and have a unified view about how to address these issues if they do come up for us.
I guess in general, what role do you think sports plays in addressing the social issues and then some of these divisiveness that we've seen over the last week?
I think sport can play a huge role. I mean, I really think it's one of the better experiences you can have in terms of a gentrified experience is go into a sports bar where people are rooting for the Packers or hopefully the Bucks or whoever. It crosses all kinds of different, economic and racial and other barriers, and I think it's a very, very positive thing. And I think that what you're seeing in the response over the last couple of days, I think, is exactly that. You had, organizations that didn't come out yesterday. They weren't really protesting the national anthem. They were trying to be, it was the opposite. They were really trying to express their support for each other. And I think that that's a big sign of the power of sport.
Look, I think, for me, it's probably a little bit more personal, but I wasn't born here, so, this is a phenomenal country. I mean, America is, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world. And what makes it great is the fact that people can voice their opinion. And that, to me, is sort of one of the most important things about this country. So, It is what it is, and I think we've all got to learn to respect that. And sort of that's how I look at it.
Hi, Jim Nelson of the Journal-Sentinel. As you take assessment, having known the team for a little more than 3 years, what's your assessment of the development project and the surrounding development surrounding the arena? And how are things going as far as that part of it goes?
I think we're going to have an apartment building right to the, right on the parking lot, the eastern wall of that. That's going to start relatively soon, and we're in discussions for block 5 and 6 now with some people. And then so I think, we'll hope to have those blocks activated, at least one of them in the next few years. And then I think once the arena, we move to the new arena, immediately after that, the Bradley Center will be demolished. So it's going to take us a while to take that thing down. That thing was built with concrete, and we can't blow it up. The parking garage came down that you see going where the plaza is going to be. So that plaza development will be going on when the arena opens up, and there'll be 3 or 4 new buildings there. So and then when the Bradley Center comes down, which will be 6 to 9 months at least after the new arena, you're going to have a whole different feel of the downtown area. So you'll see new buildings on 3 or 4 other places, and some more land to build new buildings with in the future.
Recent ESPN report.
Only happens to you, by the way, just so we know.
Coincidence? I don't think so.
A recent ESPN report talks about how many NBA teams are losing money, and you were listed among them. Has there been any surprises from the business side of things for you guys as you've taken over the team, and is that accurate?
I don't want to lose money.
Yeah. I agree with him. I'll say this, from a business standpoint, it's not a single dimensional thing, right? So there's the P&L of the team, there's the media value to the league, of which we're 1/30th of that. There's a lot of different elements to it. I think from the time we bought the team, the value of franchises has gone up, as evidenced by the $2.2 billion they just spent for the Rockets, so that's good. I mean, not that long ago, when Mark and I bought the team, paid $550 million, it was the highest price ever paid. It's crazy, that was 3.5 years ago. It's gone from $550 million to $2.2 billion over that time. And on an operating basis, many of the teams lose money or don't make a lot of money. I think that is, for the most part, the reality of running the team, and that the incremental value in it is in the appreciation of the franchise and just the general media rights. We happen to be, I think, in a position of having the best sports league in the world, right? I mean, soccer, the Premier League and whatnot, those guys have got a higher revenue. But if you had to pick one league to own over the next 20 years of your life, I would pick the NBA. It's a worldwide sport. I spend half of my time on the road. I was in Brazil last week. I was in Ghana talking to the guys in Toronto. The first 30 minutes of every meeting I talk about is the NBA. It's all everyone wants to talk about. So it's the league is in a great place. Our demographics are in a great place. And I think that'll reflect itself through the economics of it. So, but then the day-to-day P&L is the day-to-day P&L. We have to manage that, obviously.
Here's the big issue. Why do a lot of teams lose money? Is because if you don't want to lose money, then make sure you don't bring a competitive team on the floor, right? So the problem ends up being that the vast majority of everybody who owns a team wants to win, and ourselves included. So if we wanted to make money, you would have a much lower payroll.
And we're 118% of the salary cap, right? So just under the tax. So we obviously have voted with our pocketbook to try to keep the best team here, the best team on the floor every night. So.
Lance Allen from WTMJ.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to follow on the
Go ahead.
player payroll, obviously, is big numbers. You've added a lot of upgrading. At how much operating? What challenge does that add to hitting some of your P&L numbers?
They've gone up. I mean, obviously it's gone up to build this, right? I mean, the goal and the idea was, and I actually think Wes took the lead on this, was if we want to be a championship caliber team and we want to be best in class, then start building those facilities, and then hopefully everything else will come into place. There's a cost to that, right? And there obviously is, and we've decided we're going to invest for the future.
I think that's the critical word, though. There's a difference between spending money and investing. And we feel like where you're sitting right now, this is not an expense, this is an investment. And, you know, it's an investment at every level. It personifies what the organization is all about. Our players have the best-in-class treatment. The people who work here work in the best environment. That's the culture that, you know, Mike was talking about. That's really what makes what makes things work. When you look at these organizations that have had these long runs, San Antonio has been in the playoffs for, you know, Lord knows how many years in a row. These guys have been best in class. They've got a lot of consistency in their organizations, and they've invested, you know, heavily in the culture that they're trying to build, and that's what we've tried to emulate.
And we're already starting to see some of those results in terms of our revenue increases, our sponsorship increases. I think we got almost 2,500 new season ticket subscriptions, the highest in the NBA, this off-season. And by investing in this product, our view is you invest first and the revenues will come, and we're already seeing it.
Does everybody have season tickets?
Yeah. Come on.
If not,
There's still a couple left.
right there, we can sell them. Give your name to Peter.
Lance Allen from WTMJ. Wes, you mentioned being patient, but there is still a here and now element to this. Bringing back Jason Terry and then making some of the recent moves like Joel Anthony and Gerald Green and Kendall Marshall and stuff like that. Are you looking for a little more of a veteran element or a little more of a leadership voice, so to speak? Is that something that you're looking for to bridge to the championship that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's really to fill out the roster with people that we think can make a difference. One thing that's interesting is, when the big jump in salaries happened after the media deal, the league talked to the Player Association about trying to smooth that out, and they ultimately decided they didn't want to smooth out, so you had the big jump a year ago. And what happened is pretty predictable, is that there was a lot of great salaries that were signed up for contracts that summer. This summer, very little in the way of salary cap available, and there's a lot of really talented players that are not on rosters right now, and I think next year's going to even be worse. So when you look at the quality of people who are, in our training camp that starts here tomorrow, it's remarkable that these kind of guys are around. I think the other big developmental element is this whole, development, the G League, for us, the herd, and the two-way players. And so I think that, I personally think it was the biggest element of the player contract we did a year ago, which basically just extended the piece with the players, but it also then created this two-way players, 2 more roster spots you have. And I think that changes, the development path you have dramatically of the kinds of players you can bring into. They put a statistic up this morning that said 40% of all the players in the playoffs last year had spent some time in the G League or D League. So much like, the web.com tour has been very, very instrumental in getting people in the PGA Tour, I think you're going to see the same development on this side, and that's really exciting in terms of player personnel, being smart about it, going out and scouring the world. There's 7 billion people out there. A lot of them want to be playing basketball in this building. We just got to find the ones that can really fit for us. That's really what we think is the exciting part of the future of it.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi guys, AJ Byaport, Fox 6. Just building off the question about the president and the Warriors and the LeBron tweet, you have a player in Jabari who's been very active in the community. You have another player in John who a couple of years ago went public with him feeling that he was racially profiled when trying to purchase jewelry. What do you believe is the team's role, not only in facilitating unity, but facilitating the conversation that players say they're trying to initiate with their platform?
Well, I think the team's role is to be a team. We encourage diversity of opinion. We support our players. We support our staff. The issues that were raised are not simple, single-dimensional issues, and we want to be good listeners and really provide the platform so people feel like they can speak openly, and we support that. I think Jabari has been a phenomenal example of a young man with a great social conscience who's tried to basically put himself out there on a number of these issues, and we're supportive about that, and we want to encourage that kind of behavior from our team and be a good place for them to express those opinions.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Mike Fascitelli, Mark Lazary, Wes Edens, Jamie Dinan, we appreciate your time and we thank you for the questions from the media as well.